all your school rugby, all in one place. This is Next Gen 15.
Alright guys, welcome to Next Gen 15, and it's time for our annual Top 20 Global Rugby Schools. So if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to click that subscribe button as well as bell notification, and as soon as new videos are released, you'll be the first to know. So just to let you know, this will not include South African schools, unfortunately. There just wasn't enough rugby played in South Africa for us to consider any schools. I mean, 2 games or 3 games is not enough, and I mean, that's a maximum amount of games some of the schools in South Africa played. On top of that, what we're looking at for the European teams, for the UK teams, is the 2019-2020 season. So the 2019-2020 season for the UK and Ireland teams, and there was enough rugby played, in our opinion, in Australia and New Zealand to consider those schools as well. So obviously we just need to give a huge shout out and a thanks to Herschel Fruin from High School Top 200 for his input. He is the expert, the go-to guy for New Zealand school rugby, and we very much value his input and look forward to working with him more on these type of lists in the future. So without further ado, let's get into the top 20. 20th place, we have SCOTS College from New Zealand. You can see they had a 10-9-1 season, 482 points for and 110 against, with an average score of 48-11. Some great wins over St. Pat's Town and Wellington College. Tight loss over St. Pat's Silverstream during the round robin stage of the Wellington competition. But then in the cup final, they basically beat St. Pat's Silverstream 24-21, which means they were declared Wellington champions for this year. One of the parents of the schools school players is a South African. He's been in touch with me, sent some of their footage. They are a really, really good looking team. Perhaps they could have got a bit further, maybe made the top 4. You don't really know. But definitely an exciting team to watch. And from what I'm told, a young team, so we should definitely look out for them next year. 19th place, we have KIRKHAM Grammar from England. Very long season for these guys. 18 games played, 17 wins and only the 1 loss. 536 points for and 150 against, a 32-8 average score. Great win over Landovery, for example, 59-5, a very, very strong Welsh school. Hartbury, we know Hartbury are a strong school, 34-7, beating Dulwich 15-0. But you take a look at that 1 loss was against Wellington College, and Wellington College we did rank number 1 in England for the year. But the reason why they probably weren't ranked higher was because they didn't play all the big guns in England. Still a fantastic school and a fantastic program, and definitely look forward to seeing them back in action once the lockdown ends. 18th place, we have Waverley from Australia. They've been perennial champs in the CAS division in Australia. Looked very good this year. 5 wins and 5 games played. 203 for, 91 against, an average score 41-18. Now, the CAS is not the strongest division in Australian school rugby, but it is a strong division nonetheless. I'll call it probably the 3rd strongest division in Australian rugby. You can see the very tight win over Barker College there, 18 points to 17. That's their traditional rivals. And they were declared CAS winners, and probably would have contributed quite a few players to the Australian schools and Australian Barbarians type setup this year. So 18th place, Waverley from Australia. 17th, we have Sacred Heart from New Zealand. Now, the match record might not look that good, guys, but you got to consider that Auckland, without a doubt, is the toughest school rugby competition in the world. It's absolutely brutal. 5 played, 3 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 144 for, 71 against, 29-14 average score. Very big win over Auckland Grammar, who were looking outstanding this year, 24-21. Then a tight loss to St. Peter's, 20-25. Drawing with St. Kitts, who are a powerhouse, and then finally beating De La Salle, 25-8. Possibly could have made the top 4 in the Auckland League, which would have resulted in a playoff finish. How far they would have gone after that would have remained to be seen, but still very good team. 16th place, we have St. Joseph's from Australia. This is the powerhouse of AAGPS rugby. Fantastic team. They just had the 1 loss this year, but you can see they beat SCOTS comfortably, thrashed Shaw, Tartwood over St. Ignatius, and then thrashed Newington. 5 played 4 wins, 1 loss, 206.86 for and against, and 41.17 average scored. But then just that loss in the final against Kings, who looked really good this year, 1943. So your 16th place school, St. Joseph's from Australia. 15th place we have CRANLEIGH from England. So they were actually declared English champions by SCOTS due to their calculations. You can take a look at it. Just go to schoolsrugby.co.uk and you can get an idea of how they do their ranking system. But for us, we put them 15th in the world. Unbeaten season, 10-10, 378 points, 4 and 66 against, which basically gives you a 38.7 average score. Great win over Tunbridge, Hampton School, Gower from Wales, Epsom, Canford. I mean, very good victories over there. But the problem was that they never played the big boys. There was no SEDBERGH played. There was no Wellington played. So until you play these schools, we can't really rank you much higher. But definitely a fantastic team this year and very deserving of their 15th place finish. 14th place, COLEG GWENT from Wales. Nice season for them. 12 played, 11 wins, 1 loss. 369 for and 137 against with 31.11 average. Very, very good results over there. For example, Newport, big rugby school there, 50 points to 7. Nice win over COLEG CRANLEIGH, Welsh powerhouse, 19-8. Just the 1 loss against forgive me for this, guys, COLEG CMOEDD, just 12-24. So, yeah, very good season for them. They finished second in Wales, and some of the footage we saw, we really like what we saw in them. 13th place, we have Nudgee College from Australia, and they finished runners-up in the GPS. 8 played, 7 wins, 1 loss, 261 for and 114 against, with an average score of 33.14. Nice win to open up the season against Churchy, 28-20. Then very good victory over Southport. Very, very good team, Southport, 24-21. Battle the Colours, very tight game, 24-19. And then the last game of the season, they lost to Brisbane Boys 22-33. Brisbane Boys had a fantastic team this year, and obviously we'll get to them later. 12th place, King's College from New Zealand, another Auckland powerhouse. They would have actually played at the World Schools Festival this year in South Africa. So it would have been fascinating to have a benchmark, but unfortunately it was cancelled due to the pandemic. But in terms of their season, 5 played, 3 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 198 for and 64 against, an average score 40-13. Nice win over St. Peter's, who had some really good-looking players. Then a draw against De La Salle, big win against Dilworth, and another one against Tangaroa. Then a very, very tight and heartbreaking loss against, the form team in Auckland this year, Auckland Grammar 32-34. 11th place, Clifton from England. Nice season for them. 10 played, 9 wins, 1 loss, 299 for, 92 against, an average score of 30 points to 9. Nice win at the start of the season against Monmouth, a Welsh powerhouse, 34-3. Very, very good win against Millfield, 29-0. And then just the 1 loss, as you can see, against Wellington College, 14 points to 19. But very, very strong program being developed at the school, guys, and we're definitely excited to see them back in action. We're told that in terms of the younger age groups, they got some very, very good players coming through. So we definitely look forward to seeing some rugby again, and I'm sure Clifton's going to become a well-known name in school rugby circles. 10th place, we have COLEG CMOEDD. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. 12 games played, 11 wins, no losses, just the 1 draw. 407 for and 110 against, an average score of 34.9. And, in our opinion, Welsh school rugby is very, very underrated. I mean, they got some really, really good players. Some big backline boys. I mean, if you take a look at some of the centres there, you'd be quite shocked. I mean, I'm concentrating on the centres because, the games that I've seen, your 12 and 13 combination at some of these Welsh schools are just unbelievable. I mean, right at the peak of school rugby. You can see they start off their season. Cardiff and Vale, tough opposition, 15 points to 8 win over there. Nice wins against Landover in COLEG GWENT. Then just the draw, 1 draw against your score, Glunter, 14 all. That was just the 1 blemish on the season. Then you can see a nice win over COLEG CRANLEIGH, 33-14 as well. COLEG CRANLEIGH are one of the top schools in Wales, historically speaking. So definitely, in our opinion, deserve their place there. And, we're definitely going to be keeping a closer eye on Welsh schools rugby. Ninth place, we have St. Kitts from New Zealand. 5 games played, 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, 153 and 64, with an average of 31-13. Nice win over Tangaroras to start the season, 36-5. Brutal game against Mags, won by 7 points there. Then I was unfortunate to lose against Auckland Grammar. They lost 3-10. So you can just see how tight it is in this competition, guys. A very, very tight competition. Brutal competition, the Auckland Schools League. Draw against Sacred Heart, and then finally a big win against Dilworth. No doubt in anyone's mind they would have probably ended up in the top 4 in the Auckland League, and then it would have just remained to be seen if they could go through to the national top 4. 8th place, we have Kings Parramatta from Australia. Definitely one of the form teams in Australia this year. Unbeaten, 5-5, 206-4 and 87 against, with an average score of 41-17. Start of the season, very well. St. Ignatius, victory 43-14, then beating SCOTS 41-21. Newington 29-14, big win over Shaw 50-19. And then perhaps the shock of the season, the final game, the game that was going to determine the AAGPS champions. People expected it to be a lot tighter, but they ended up running away with the game against St. Joseph's and winning 43-19. St. Joseph's are the AAGPS powerhouse, like I mentioned before, and this Kings team is truly special, one of the finest in the school's history. Moving on to 7th place, we have SEDBERGH from England. Just the 1 loss in the season, 11-10-1. 395 for and 127 against, 36-12 average. You can see the quality of opposition they played was very high, beating Whitgift, RGS Newcastle, Woodhouse Grove, amongst others. Then a nice win against Blackrock College, the Leinster powerhouse. Haileybury, big win over there. Then a massive win over Wellington College, 20 points to 10. And then they lost to Millfield, 5-16. And the irony is that, SEDBERGH went 2 or 3 years unbeaten. And the unbeaten run started against Millfield and it ended against Millfield. So that is quite interesting. And then obviously the last game of the season, a nice win over Walsh powerhouse, Landover, 32 points to 7. So a great season for SEDBERGH, but unfortunately for them, they lost their unbeaten run. They have been quite high in our list before in the previous 2 years with our international rankings. But just the 1 loss this year that obviously hurt them a bit. But still a fantastic outfit, fantastic rugby school, and no doubt they'll be coming back strong. 6th place, we have Brisbane Boys from Australia. An 8-8 season for them. Started with the season with a nice win over Brisbane State, 39-17. Tight win against Churchie, 15-7. Then just ran away with it against Gregory Terrace. And from there, it was all about the Brisbane Boys players. I mean, what a team this year, guys. What a team. You're looking at some of the best players, young school players in the world that was in here. I mean, you're looking at Zach Ho, you're looking at, Jack Howarth, just absolute lethal talents. 325 points for and 100 against a 29-13 average. And this is their first trophy since the 50s and the first ever outright win in their history. So this is their best ever school team. And they would have definitely been ranked a bit higher. I think had there been international games between the Australian and the New Zealand schools, but without international games, it's very hard for us to determine an international ranking. So we got to go off instinct and obviously rely a lot on the knowledge of Herschel Fruin from High School Top 200 to guide us through this process, so we can be as unbiased as we possibly can be. But no doubt, Brisbane Boys, one of the top rugby schools in the world this year. 5th place, we have Auckland Grammar from New Zealand. They were top of the log for the Auckland 1A division, and they probably would have gone all the way. Many believe they were in line to become national champions in New Zealand this year. At least would have reached the top 4, maybe a final. 5-4 in one season, 143 for and 76 against. You can see that they had an average of 29-15. They started the season off very well against Dilworth, 55-0. And then they lost very tight game to Sacred Heart, 21-24. And again, it just goes to show you how competitive the Auckland 1A division is. Then 3 wins on the trot against amazing opposition, beating St. Kitts 10-3. St. Kitts a powerhouse, Colston a powerhouse, 23-17. Then a tight win against their fierce rivals, Kings, 34-32. It showed they had the gumption to go forward. They were basically learned their lessons from the Sacred Heart game and very deserving of a 5th place finish in our opinion. Fourth place, we have Wellington College from England, and what a season these guys had, 21 games. And, I mean, you just look at the quality of opposition. They did not stand back. They played everybody that they could have possibly played or was willing to play them. 20 wins, 1 loss, 602 for, 254 against a 29-12 average score. Mr. Richards is doing a fantastic job at Wellington College with his program, and you can see the results right there. Starting off the season, Dulwich 31-0, Northampton Boys 47-11, Whitgift 31-8, Millfield 34-15, and then they just went on an unbelievable run. They're St. Joseph's Festivals champions. They won a number of other trophies. Just the one heartbreaking loss against SEDBERGH, 10 points to 20, and in the opinion of our team, had it not been for injuries, that result could have been very different. And had it not been for that result, Wellington College would have definitely vied for first place on this list. Fantastic rugby school, great program being developed over there, historical program, and we definitely look forward to seeing them play again in the future. Just an entertaining team to watch and a very, very well-coached team. So our fourth ranked team, Wellington College from England. In third place, we have a tie, and the first team is CLONGOWES College from Ireland. Now, very hard to get results on Irish schools, guys. Almost impossible. We've looked everywhere we can. And we'll give you a brief explanation of why we've ranked these teams equally, but let's just go through the results first. So, nice win over to Renneroo, 34-14. St. Gerard's winning 55-24, and then against Castleknock winning 29-19. The 3-3 season in terms of the Leinster Cup, 118-4 and 57 against, giving you an average score of 39-19. Then the team they tied with was NEWBRIDGE, and NEWBRIDGE started off very well. Nice win over CBC Monkstown, 45-7, beating Kilkenny 10 points to 8, and then beating St. Michael's 25-22. Big upset over there. So 3-3 season for them in terms of the Leinster Cup, 84 and 37 against, an average score of 27 points to 12. Now, the reason why we have the Irish teams ranked so high is because we did see some games. And most notably, the game was the game SEDBERGH versus Blackrock College. Now, SEDBERGH were probably the second-ranked team in England this year, in our opinion. And they managed to beat Blackrock 26-23. And that was at home. So Blackrock were travelling away from home. So that just goes to show you the strength in terms of Leinster Schools rugby. And then what ended up happening is that Blackrock actually ended up getting knocked out very early in the Leinster Schools competition, which showed you the strength of this competition. And then NEWBRIDGE and CLONGOWES College ultimately reached the final of the Leinster Schools competition. And, you would have probably thought to yourselves CLONGOWES College would have probably taken it, but after NEWBRIDGE beat St. Michael's, which nobody expected, it could have been anyone's game. In our opinion, it would have been a game between the brutal forwards of CLONGOWES College and a nice speedy backline from NEWBRIDGE. So it would have been a heck of an exciting game, but we just think to ourselves that based on the fact that SEDBERGH, number 2 ranked team in England, that beat the number 1 ranked team in England, only managed to beat Blackrock by 3 points, at home, like we mentioned, and then basically Blackrock get knocked out of the first round of the competition. It just goes to show you how strong the Leinster Schools competition is. So, in our opinion, we had to put them down in this place over here. And if you guys, have any other information or know how we can get hold of more Irish schools rugby results, maybe we can be a bit more accurate. But we got no doubt that these two Leinster schools would have taken on the vast majority of international schools. They were looking very good. You guys should go online and take a look at some footage. I think you'd be very surprised at the strength of Irish schools rugby. But that leads us on to our number 1 team. And this was not even close, guys. This was not even up for debate. It was the first team on the list. And that is Hamilton Boys. This was arguably the best team they've had in a decade or so, and that says a lot. That says a lot, because they continue in the Super 8, and the Super 8 is probably it is the second strongest competition in New Zealand. It's a brutal competition as well, and it belongs to Hamilton Boys. They are an unbelievable outfit, and this year's team was just unreal. 8 wins from 8 games played, 100% record, 37-9 average scoreline. And one thing you could say about Hamilton boys is that maybe over the last couple of years, they've choked, for want of a better word. And it's not trying to be disrespectful to the school, but during the round robin phase, they've often gone unbeaten. They've often had great results, but then they fall short at a final, the Super 8 or a playoff final or the top 4. They've often seemed to have fallen short, but there's no doubt in anybody's mind the execution and the talent in this team, they would have been New Zealand champions. There's no doubt about it. You take a look at these results. I started off the season with the nice win over New Plymouth, 26-14, then Palmerston North, 17-10, a bit tighter, and then from there, it was just, decimating teams, basically. Rotorua, strong outfit, 36-18. The Napier Boys, 43-7. Then you just take a look at that run against Tauranga, Hastings, and Gisborne. Gisborne, 80 points to 5. Then the semi-finals of the Super 8, 29-18 against Napier Boys. And when that score comes, if you take a look at the 43-17, you think to yourself, maybe we might have a repeat, and maybe Rotorua have a chance in the final. I watched the game against Rotorua. Rotorua had no choice. I think, in fact, the scoreboard flatters Rotorua a bit. So, number one by some distance, guys. By some distance, our number one is Hamilton Boys from New Zealand. A fantastic outfit. And obviously it was disappointing not to include any South African schools, but I've got a feeling this Hamilton Boys team could have taken on the best from South Africa. There's no doubt about it. Anyway, thanks a lot for taking the time to watch this video. Let me know your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. Obviously, these lists are very difficult to do and do become quite controversial. And we welcome honest and constructive criticism and debate. Have a fantastic week further, and stay tuned for the next video, which drops on Friday. Cheers. Bye.